Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call for May 31st of 2022. I am Brian T. Jackett, your host for today. Today, we've got some great news and some demos that we'll be sharing with you. But first, we'll go through all of our updates, announcements, and other things. If you have joined in the past couple of weeks and you've noticed that we're light on news, well, guess what? Build was last week, and oh my goodness, do we have a lot of things to share with you. Love to catch you up on all those things. And then shortly after that, we'll jump into the actual stars for today, which will be Lewis and Rebeb, talking a little bit about the Graph Developer Portal updates that have come along. Vess will be sharing with us a number of those different key announcements from Build 22. And unfortunately, we did have one third presenter, David, who's going to be presented today. Unfortunately, he is out sick, so we are going to reschedule him for a later date. But we will fill in with the other topics we have today. Lots of great information to share with you. Now, whether you're new to the community or whether you've been here for a while, we do have a couple different simple things we'd like to cover with you first, just some resources you can take a look into. First is we have two different community channels for our videos that we have out there. The first is our Microsoft 365 developer videos. This is at aka.ms/m365dev YouTube. Here you can find a little bit more of the official videos that are going to be out there in terms of training or other types of resources to learn from, as well as our Microsoft 365 community videos, where all of our community calls and a lot of other things get recorded, and you can actually go back and see those things. You can find them at aka.ms/m365/videos. We also have a number of different open source initiatives. As you can tell, there's a lot of things available to you through the PnP, through Office Development, SharePoint, Microsoft Graph. Lots of great ways to get involved. If you'd like to see the documentation, if you'd like to see the SDKs, be able to contribute back, open issues, and so forth, lots of great ways to get plugged in. You can find all the resources on the page here. Also, we have a number of different samples available to you. So instead of just being able to see the demos here on our community calls or see screenshots, in some of our documentation, instead, we'd love you to actually test these things out in your own environment. So lots of great different samples you can find for Teams, for SharePoint Framework, for Power Platform, and more. Please take a look at the samples that are out there. We now have our unified gallery for this with more than 1,000 things out there. So we'd love for you to plug into that and see what we have available. And if you're looking for the way to get involved, find your one-stop shop for everything, again, we've got a lot of different links that are out there. Instead, you can go to aka.ms/m365/community. Great way to find all the different meeting invites, the links to our samples, the different open source docs, and other things that are going on out there. So please take a look at that link, find that one-stop shop for all the information that you need. Now, in addition to our own M365 platform community call, we do have a number of other calls that are going on out there. One thing we do want to note, though, for our platform community call, which we have going today, do note that in July through the end of August, we will be on our summer break. Now, this is the Northern Hemisphere summer break. We do want to make everyone aware of that so that you can make your plans for, unfortunately, not being able to attend with us on that weekly basis. We will definitely miss you all, but know that we're going to be coming back in September with a lot of great content that we're already starting to prepare for you. Now, in terms of the other community calls that are out there, there are other ones that we'll be seeing for Adaptive Cards, for Identity Platform, Office Add-ins, Power Platform, and some more. These will continue on through that summer break that we have. So please take a look at those and feel free to join into the community. You can find more for all the different invites, aka.ms/m365/calls. Now, if you're new or if you want to be able to have a kind of sandbox environment to be able to work with, one of the great resources out there is going to be our M365 developer program. With this, you can get free E5 developer licenses, again, not for production use, but you can actually go in there and develop against a sandbox tenant. Great thing is that this is going to be available for 90 days. As long as you continue to use it, it'll actually self-renew. You can find more at aka.ms/m365/dev program. Please sign up today, be able to get access to that sandbox tenant, and start deploying a lot of different things that are available to you out there. The other free available resource that we do want to highlight is our Microsoft 365 platform learning capabilities. We've got a lot of great things out there in terms of learning paths, in terms of videos, modules, and more. This is all free available content that we want to make available to you. You can find this at aka.ms/m365/dev/learn. Lots of great content there. Please take a look at this, and we'd love to have you participating with that. Also, we do have a couple of different podcasts that are available for you. If you'd love to hear from some of the different experts, subject matter experts out there, folks who are actually building the services and applications out there, great way to hear more about this. The first one is our Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast with Jeremy Thake and Paul Schaeflein. They'll do interviews with different product managers, with leaders and so forth that are actually building those services, the APIs and so forth. Lots of great ways to hear about the news and things that are going on. You can find more at m365devpodcast.com. And we also have our Microsoft 365 PnP Weekly with our very own Vess and Waldeck, who are going to be covering different news and announcements, also interviews with lots of MVPs and other folks in the community. Great way to see what's going on in the different areas and also get plugged in with what's going on out there. You can find more at aka.ms/PnP Weekly and also the podcast at pnpweekly.podbean.com. Now, in terms of that sample gallery that we mentioned earlier, again, we now have our unified samples gallery. So being able to pull together a lot of different sources together into one nice and easy to use location. We now have more than 1,070 samples. Again, we passed the 1,000 mark a little bit earlier this year, and we're continuing to go strong. So we love to see folks from both Microsoft and the community going in there and contributing their own samples out there. You can see lots of great reference material, ways to actually install this into your own environment. So please, please, please take a look at the samples that are out there, install them into your environments, get to see the look and feel of these things, what you can actually go and do with the Microsoft 365 platform. Find more at aka.ms/m365/samples. And we'll turn things over to David to tell us a little bit about our Sharing is Caring initiative. David?
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Well, friends, you may have wondered, where do all those samples come from? Amazing individuals like yourself. And so we would like to provide you opportunity on how you can also submit samples if you're not quite sure how. Sharing is Caring is a program that provides you hands-on guidance on contributing, getting more involved, learning new technologies, everything and anything you could want to get involved with in the community. We are here to provide support. These are hands-on sessions. They're safe space, not recorded. And so you can join and interact and collaborate with other members of the community, MVPs, and Microsoft employees to learn more and more about how to get involved, submit those samples. Maybe you've never worked with GitHub and something like a pull request is a foreign term. We're here to provide you hands-on guidance. So again, these are safe space. We're going to work all of the samples together, show you how to submit a pull request. Perhaps you would like to work and write new content for community. There's a new writing for the web. You'd like to learn more about how to be a better writer on the web. And hot off the heels of Microsoft Build and the announcement of Power Pages, we are going to be implementing a brand new two-part series for Power Pages coming up at the end of this month. So be on the lookout for that. Get everyone involved. And I know there's been a lot of questions around how to set that up. We got you. So be on the lookout for that. aka.ms/sharing is caring. Brian, back to you.
Thank you so much, David. And also thank you, Vesa, for the quick little update that we're actually up to 1,080 samples now that are available on there. So great to see that continues to grow out there. Another quick update, someone did share into the chat that we'll see if we can update the meeting invite for this community call to reflect the summer break that we'll be taking. So we'll make sure to get on that if possible, send that out. All right, now, as I mentioned, yes, the past few weeks have been a little bit light on news. All of that was mostly in anticipation of the Build conference that happened last week. If you weren't able to join out, don't worry, Vesa's got you covered. We're going to go through some of the key highlights out there, but we also have a lot of other announcements that came out on our blog platform. So lots of great things coming from the M365 Dev blog, from the Teams blog, and from the Viva folks. So we'll kind of run through these as quickly as we can, and then we'll get into the actual portion of today's content. The first one that we have out there is that we've got a new capability, something called Live Share, which is available inside of Teams. This is great for a lot of times when you're trying to do this kind of media synchronization. If you'll say you're trying to do a video playback and do it for every single person who's called into that. So we're sharing a little bit more about this, basically built on top of the Fluid Framework, Azure Fluid Relay, and a lot of other different technologies. We're seeing some very inventive kind of solutions that people are building with this. So please take a look at that blog post and find more about how that actually is working, APIs that are supported, and how you can integrate that into your Teams app. Second, we have some updates in terms of the welcome messages that are available through your Teams applications. In the past, whenever you did that welcome message after installing a new app or a bot or something, it'd actually go into the general channel. If you're trying to target that to a different location, though, that actually wasn't possible. And you couldn't subscribe to the different events that were happening once the thing was installed, once the conversation post was actually put out to there. So we've got some updates for that. You can actually now go into other channels. You can actually target those things and listen for some new installation conversation update events out there as well. Next, we had the Microsoft Tech Days event, which happened earlier this month. If you weren't able to join in, don't worry, we've got you covered. It was a 2-hour virtual event. We had a lot of great full-time employees from Microsoft, as well as MVPs, sharing more about how to build applications on the Microsoft 365 platform. Lots of great content. We'd love for you to actually go in, take a look at that. The video is available. You can take a look at the link in the blog post as well. Also, a couple of other different updates that are coming out there. The first is with our Microsoft Graph connectors. We have a number of different updates that are rolling out in this build timeframe. The first one being that we've got increased scale. Previously, you could only ingest 700,000 items per connection. We've actually now increased that up to 5 million items. So handling a lot more in terms of the actual scale for that, as well as the ingestion throughput. There's also new experiences coming available for this. If you were able to see in Satya's keynote, he actually highlighted one of those things called Context IQ integration. So being able to actually show that Graph Connector content in a number of different locations. So not just search, but also things like Outlook and also in Teams. And we've also got a new Graph Connector SDK that will be rolling out soon. There's a preview for that you can find the link for in the blog post out there. Next, for Office add-ins, there was a lot of different updates coming to the JavaScript API for this. We've got a lot of improvements across all the different hubs that are out there, from PowerPoint to Word to Excel and more. You can find a lot of different API updates that are available out there, as well as, and this is an interesting one for me, was the Access connector. You can actually connect Access into Dataverse and Power Platform. So being able to build applications, be able to work with the data behind the scenes, lots of other great ways to integrate with that. And lastly, with this one was also the ability to actually create Outlook add-ins with a Teams manifest. You may have seen that the Teams JavaScript SDK update rolling out for version 2. There's now manifest support to actually go and build those Office add-ins in a preview fashion. So take a look at the announcements for this one as well. Lots of great information out there. And our last news on this page, and yes, we do have a second page of news to cover on here, for Microsoft Graph at Build. Oh my goodness, was there a number of different sessions that were touching on this, from keynotes to breakouts to on-demand sessions. Lots of great updates, particularly with Microsoft Graph Data Connect. There's new integrations with Azure Synapse, with Microsoft Purview. Sorry about that. We renamed this recently. It used to be Azure Purview, and there was also stuff for compliance. They've actually now merged into Microsoft Purview as a combined area. Also, a number of different updates in terms of the Teams channel and chat messages APIs. Lots of great things you can do for embedding those into different applications or being able to surface that data in other areas. There's also a new approvals API. So for approvals inside of Teams, you can actually be able to do some simple create, read, update, and delete operations with that data. So that preview is coming very shortly. And we'll hear a little bit more about today in our community call, but the Graph Developer Portal, we actually got a facelift for that. There's a lot of new information, lots of great different kind of design going on with this, and we're adding more relevant information to help you to get to the information that you need to. So we'll hear more from that about with Lewis and Rabab a little bit later on today. On to our second page of news, and yes, I'll try and work through this very quickly. If you are building applications with the Microsoft Cloud, we've got a lot of great information for developers. We also now have some information for enterprise application architects or for technical leaders, folks who actually want to get a little bit, maybe a higher view of this. Dan Welling did a great job of sharing some different documentation and some guidelines for this. You can find more in the blog post on that. And we also have the Teams Toolkit, which is now available in GA, generally available in VS Code. This is great to see the journey for this, being able to easily build together those different tools and different bots and other things. In the past, we had this as very much of a technical kind of guidance for this. Now we've actually got some scenario-based templates as well. So great to see that we're just expanding the availability for this, helping you kind of guide you through the process of building those Teams applications. So please go ahead, download that extension into Visual Studio Code and be able to build your Teams apps pretty soon. Moving over to the Viva side of the house, we do have some updates in terms of the Viva connections. One great thing that I saw out there was being able to actually support a multilingual dashboard. This has been a big request from a lot of folks, being able to have actually those multilingual cards out there supporting different languages. One of the things that's been rolled out there. There's also a new top news card, as well as improved ranking and personalization. So being able to get to the cards, the information, the news, and so forth is available to you. And we've actually got a number of different third parties that we're also highlighting at the same time. Folks who've built onto the platform are starting to provide solutions for their customers. We'd love to see you adopting those things and taking a look at what they've built out there. And then moving into our last area with Teams, we do have a number of different updates out there. The first one being one of our partners, CrossCall. They've released a new set of ruggedized devices where you can actually support that new walkie-talkie mode. This is where you have a dedicated, push-to-talk button on there, quickly and easily get to the people that you're trying to message with or that you're trying to make a call to. Great to see their support out there. Next, there is a new API coming onto Graph called the Virtual Appointments API. In the past, you may have seen that we've got ability to actually create events for users, for Teams calls, and so forth. The idea here is that it's using a similar infrastructure as the other kind of online meeting capabilities. But in this case, we're actually looking to do this kind of B2C or business to consumer scenarios. So if you're doing something like a medical visit, or if you're doing a video that you're going to embed into a different website or a portal, so not actually in Teams. Lots of great support for being able to schedule those meetings and be able to integrate with that API that's out there. Last two items on here, we've got a new episode of the Inside Microsoft Teams. This is another interview that they're doing with the folks from Kent State. Great to see them be able to integrate with Teams, Power Platform, bots, and more, increasing productivity and be able to see kind of the lessons learned that they had with that. And then lastly, we got a nice long post on the what's new in Microsoft Teams. Can't cover everything that's in there because, man, there's a lot of different updates that are out there, from new devices that are available, new virtual desktop integration. We got the Teams app now in the Windows Store, and also updates to education, to frontline scenarios, as well as new releases for the government clouds. So all of that wrapped up in a nice bow. Lots and lots of nice news that's out there. So please take a look at the blogs. Yes, is information overload for sure, but we do appreciate you taking a look at those different things that are going on. Build them into your app, see where the things make sense for you. And with that, I will turn things over. Do we have Wajid, or is it Surbi talking today for the Teams platform updates?
Hi, it will be Surbi talking on.
Excellent.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So I'd walk you through the platform and documentation updates. We've released the following features for build. You could find the doc links here. One main feature that we'd like to highlight is the LiveShare SDK, which is designed to transform Teams app into collaborative multi-user experiences without writing a dedicated backend code. LiveShare SDK provides a free, fully managed and ready-to-use Azure Fluid Relay backed by the security and global scale of Teams. Please visit the documentation and aka.ms Teams LiveShare and try the samples. Please note that this is still in developer preview. Other than this, we've also released Teams Client SDK version 2.0, which is still available on NPM. The new SDK is backward compatible with SDK v1 function. We also released Teams Toolkit version 4.0, which is generally available. The new manifest schema 1.13 is introduced to enable support for extending Teams app to Outlook and Office. For Teams-only apps, use version 1.12 or later, or earlier, sorry. And now bots and message extensions are in GCC and GCC Edge. So these were the platform updates. If you have any feedback or suggestion, please post on aka.ms Teams platform feedback. The link is available in the footer. You could also follow us on Twitter and configure to the RSS feeds to get regular platform updates. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much, Surbi. Great to hear all those updates and see more about those. Next, we'll move into our picture time. We would love to have everyone come off of their camera mutes. Love to see your shining smiley faces. We can get a nice little GIF that Vesa can pull together for this. So here we go. See people coming off camera, coming on camera.
I will move the camera feed in here. We have 50 seats in the room. So let's see if we can fill it in. We are hitting 170 attendees, so this is looking really good. Let's wait a few more seconds so we get a nice GIF animation out of that. I will start recording. It doesn't mean that you need to wave your hands yet. We still have a one row to fill in if there's any open volunteers. Maybe we'll start doing waving hands. So thank you everybody for joining. And Seb, where are you? You can be the example. Oh, there you are in the back row. Yes, there we go. You know how to do this. Excellent. So thanks everybody for joining. And awesome to see your actual faces of the real people. So awesome, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Nick was doing a good imitation of Seb on the middle. Thank you for that. Excellent. Ryan, let's get back to your screen.
Yep, presenting back there. One day these days we'll have to do everybody doing their Seb imitation, and maybe we can even coordinate clothes together to see if we can do that together.
Good idea.
At this point, we're going to turn things over to our wonderful presenters for today. We've got two sessions that we'll be covering. First will be Lewis and Rebeb talking a little bit about the Microsoft Graph Developer Portal updates, and then Vessel giving us a little overview of Build 22, all the different key announcements that are out there. So first, we'll turn things over to Lewis and Rebeb. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Brian. So thank you for having us, Brian. So it's great that we have a chance to talk to you about the updates on the Microsoft Graph Developer Portal that we have been working on specifically for Build. This is the first iteration, but we will continue improving the content and what we have available for you in the developer portal. And Rebeb and I are here to representing the whole team but this has been a teamwork in which we have been collaborating with the UX design team, the marketing team, a lot of teams within Microsoft, and we were able to launch the new look of this site last week for Build. So we will show you why we did this, and we will walk you through this new site and then some of the new pages that we created. So why we did this? We wanted users to understand what is Graph and what they can do with it, to show this in our developer portal, to get developers up and running in less than 3 minutes. We wanted them to understand how to use Graph, how to try it, and use the code in just a couple of minutes. We also wanted to up-level the Microsoft Graph Data Connect and Microsoft Graph connectors story. We thought that we were not showing the whole picture of what Microsoft Graph is. We were only showing the Microsoft Graph APIs and the story for that, but we were not telling you, we were not giving you resources and the content about Data Connect, Microsoft Graph Data Connect and the connectors. So we work on this as well, and we tried to put all this together now in the developer portal. So what's changed? You can see a new design. You can see that we improved the Get Started experience by promoting our tutorials, improving our quick starts, and just providing you with all the available resources that we have for you, and putting that together in the developer portal. We created new pages for the API, the Microsoft Graph Data Connect, and connectors. Rebecca will show you later these pages. We also updated our top nav menu. And as I mentioned, this is our first iteration of the developer portal. Our goal is to keep creating more developer-friendly experiences for Microsoft Graph, not only here with the developer portal, but also in our documentation. So we will keep working as we have been doing. And yeah, we're here to show you what changed and to hear what your feedback. We really want to improve, and we want to hear what you think about this new version of the portal and how you think it can also be improved. So now Rebecca will show you, we'll walk you through the portal and the pages you can find there. So I'm going to stop sharing so Rebecca can share her screen.
Awesome, thanks, Luis. Let me share my screen. I'm literally going just to show you what Luis just talked about. So in theory, this should be the easiest, one of the easiest demos, she said. So we'll see, we'll see if that works. I think, is that, yeah, I believe I'm sharing the right screen. So this is the new homepage. We basically aimed for clean, crisp design, removing a lot of the visual clutter to make sure that, again, you find what you need very quickly, and that we are highlighting the bigger story, the whole story of Microsoft Graph. The banner is still here on purpose because we want you to go and read the blog post about all the amazing things the team announced during build. So, and I am on the wrong page, excuse me. This is the home page. So here on the home page, again, very quickly, we wanted to tell the story. What is Microsoft Graph? So a quick link to the documentation where you can read in details what is Microsoft Graph, and you might be someone who prefers to, have hands-on, so you want to try, or maybe you read the documentation and then you want to try. Again, we are highlighting Graph Explorer, a link to Graph Explorer, which will allow you to try the APIs. And the biggest and main piece, really, we wanted to show the three big components of Microsoft Graph. So there is the Microsoft Graph API, but there is also Microsoft Graph connectors and the Microsoft Graph Data Connect. Both these, we didn't really highlight them before. So now they are there on the main page where you can go and read more about them. Another thing related to Microsoft Graph is most probably you want to know what's available. Can I use the Teams APIs maybe as part of the Microsoft Graph APIs? What other services and features are available there? So we also wanted to highlight that. News. Brian and Beta, we're going quickly through lots of news. There is always a lot of news and new things to share from Microsoft Graph. So that's also highlighted in here. So if I go and check those new pages Luis mentioned, so this is the Microsoft Graph API page. Again, here we tell the full story of what comes with the API. So there's the API reference, a quick link to the documentation. Here we have the quick start. There is a lot of work that went into this. Our teammate Jason worked on completely updating and revamping the tutorials and quick starts. The quick start page also have a new design. So here you can choose your preferred language, and I'm gonna be loyal and go with C#. I think I can try this so if I can try to get a client ID. Yes, I have no idea if this is my sandbox, and let me just very quickly approve that on my phone. Approve. And now I have my ID. Yes, so I have my client ID and I have an app. So now I can download this code sample and try it very quickly. And I think it took me less than 3 minutes. Still, I didn't try the code, but at least like we saved some time here. If I go back again, not here. So let me just type this. I love trying things like this because that's when you figure out the things that you really want to fix. Another thing here, again, we are highlighting the tools with the API. So we have a quick link to Graph Explorer, a quick link to the playground to try Microsoft Graph Toolkit, and then an overview of the SDKs and how you can download them and use them, code samples, and of course, how you can join the Microsoft 365 developer program. And we go into details of everything you can do. So how I can, it starts with how can I learn to do something? And then what tools are available for me? And then, I want to use an SDK, until all the way to how I did build my app. So how can I publish and certify my app? And then we are highlighting the learning paths. A lot of people may not know about these, but these are more in-depth scenario-based tutorials. So this is another great source to learn about the Microsoft Graph. And then again, if I go back here, showcase what we have with the connectors. So with the Microsoft Graph connectors, we are really focusing here to give you as much information as possible. So there is a lot of links to where to find the right information, what it is, and how to use it, how to get started, or how to build things. And then same thing with the Microsoft Graph Data Connect. Lots of information, lots of links to where you find the relevant documentation here related to the Microsoft Graph Data Connect, again, how you can join the developer program, etc. We also updated the navbar here to make it a little bit more clearer and focused by areas. So this is different from the previous version where we are having almost categories of items under each nav item. And as Luis mentioned, this is only the first iteration. So this is what went out for build, but this is going to be a continuous work. We are still working on this. So please, if you have any feedback, because we want this to be the home where you land in the first time when you're using Microsoft Graph. So we want to make sure that you have the experience that you are expecting here. So please keep giving us feedback. And that is that when it comes to the updates with the portal.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Louis and Rabeb. I don't see any questions in the chat. People did say you guys tempted the demo gods by trying to do a quote-unquote simple demo, but I think it worked flawlessly. Really
It's always a good move. Yes. I haven't tried this, but let me actually try this in this live demo. So that's always a great move. So
yeah, appreciate you coming on. Love to hear all the updates out there. Please do, everyone, take a look at the different updates to the docs that are out there. Lots of great information. And again, we are continuing to improve these things. This is our first pass for the build release. We are looking to make additional improvements as we go forward. And with that, we'll turn things over to Vesa to give us the update about Build 2022.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian, on that one. So as mentioned, now I have, 28 minutes to go through some of the key announcements in the Microsoft 365 platform within last week. So the Microsoft Build is really the developer-oriented conference within a year. And sure, within this time in Build, there was a lot of low-code, no-code development as well, but it is development. So we're making things happen. It's extensibility. We're adjusting things. And it's getting more and more, let's say, connected between each other across the stack, which is kind of a cool thing. So it's not a bad thing to be a low-code developer. You are a developer, and then you can be a low-code developer in one project, and you can be a pro developer in another project. So which is a great thing as well. Now the key announcements as we go through the key, let's say, moments from the last week, again related on Microsoft 365 platform. Also the key number which we shared was that we have 270 million monthly active users in the Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams is really our, let's say, the primary UX and the user interface, how we're surfacing all of the application and where we're focusing our message. Now, this does not mean, by the way, that, for example, Planner or SharePoint or OneDrive or any other things would be less important. It's just that those are actually quite often being surfaced through the Microsoft Teams. Even in this call, we are in Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams is kind of a fundamental part of our day-to-day work. And through the Microsoft Teams, we access then the information with Microsoft Graph. So that's why we're always kind of focusing on the Microsoft Teams and numbers. Now, on last week, we also talked about, it's not technically a new concept and a new idea. We introduced this a year ago. We talked about the kind of, in quotes, a new application type, which is collaborative apps. And that's really what it means, is that we're kind of integrating directly to those collaborative features, which are all part of the Microsoft 365 platform. And as we are explaining what it means and what are the layers, this is the typical, let's say, architectural slide what we're showing. So we'll surface these collaborative apps in our Office application, in the Microsoft Teams, or in your application, which is a cool new dimension in all of this discussion. So it's not just Microsoft application. You can actually surface those collaborative features in your custom application, even though that's running outside of the Microsoft 365. But then that's being connected to Microsoft 365. We have the developer tools and APIs. We're using Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code. Of course, GitHub plays a big role as an location where we can do project management, issues, pull requests, development, all of that stuff, and also sharing our samples. And of course, Power Platform is a big part of our development story as well. Data and insights layer, we have the Microsoft Graph, which is by far, well, that is the data layer to access all of the information in Microsoft 365. Dataverse as an option, and of course, we can store the data in Azure as well. And all of this is then being secured by the Microsoft Cloud capabilities. So identity within Azure AD, and then that provides the security and compliance tools, which you can take advantage of all of these applications which are being built using this collaborative app capabilities. Now, as I mentioned on this slide, so we're kind of thinking this in a bit of a new dimension. So I bear a small warning. I'm not a marketing person, so I'm going to explain this using the engineering terminology, so not necessarily about quote unquote what the marketing message was. But we kind of introduce a new layer here. So we want to meet users in the flow of the work. So we want to make sure that you as a developer can implement extensibility and applications which are attaching to the flow of the work. So the users don't need to jump to another application, another URL, another location. The application which you bring is actually coming to the user, which is a great way of thinking this. So of course, most of us spend most of our working hours in the Microsoft Teams. Well, I don't know about you, but I spend most of my time at least in Microsoft Teams. So you can easily introduce your application in a Teams. But then the new dimension here is really the fact that we can introduce those applications and kind of at the Microsoft 365 in your app. So you can integrate more easily through APIs, through controls, through connectivity, to chats, to calls, to in the meetings, with Graph APIs, you can do operations in the Microsoft 365. So really big focus area on is not necessarily forcing application to be in Teams. Rather, let's actually put the Teams and pieces of Teams in your application and make your life easier. And as part of this journey, as we're making things easier and easier in the future, we then announced the preview of Teams.js 2.0 SDK. It is still in developer preview, but what this one enables us to do is that we're able to use the same Microsoft Teams applications and surface them in multiple locations. So we can actually surface the same application in preview status in the Outlook and in the office.com, and of course in the future it's intended to be extended from there. So you can, for example, build, in this case we have a messaging extension, Soho Projects, which is actually being surfaced in the Microsoft Teams or in Outlook. So it's one implementation, but the same implementation is available in both applications. So you can easily access the information regardless are you in Teams or are you in Outlook or in office.com or in other locations in the future. But how would I actually create this? So what is the cool? So we have a new SDK, but does it make our life easier? Well, we also introduced the general availability of Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. So with Teams Toolkit Visual Studio Code, we can start implementing this kind of Teams SDK v2 applications, which are then extending and available in Microsoft Teams and in Outlook more easily. And that there is a really easy getting started journeys there. With a few click of a button, you can actually create a sample solution or start from a sample solution and start extending that. And so it's a really convenient way of building applications for Microsoft Teams. This does not necessarily mean that if you have an existing implementation, existing integration, all of that's going to go away. None at all. So you can actually integrate Teams Toolkit to your existing application. All of your existing applications will still work. Nothing is going to go away. Teams Toolkit is just there to make it easier, especially when you start creating a new application. So it gives you a nice wrapper on top of the Microsoft Teams and manifest, and then the application and F5 debugging on all of those things. And we also introduced or announced a preview of the Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio 2022. And this is right now, I guess it's scheduled, I guess it's safe to say, it's scheduled to go GA later this summer, which is a vague enough timeline, right? So I'm not promising anything specific, but later on this summer, it's going to go in GA. And that's really bringing the Teams Toolkit capabilities then in the Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code. Now, we kind of have covered already that we have this kind of symbiosis also with Power Platform. So more and more you see investments in the Power Platform also towards Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams especially. One of the things where we are investing heavily is collaboration controls. And this is really cool feature. So we're making it super easy for the Power Apps developers to take advantage of these collaborative features in their Power Apps. So here's a quick demo on building a Canvas application in Power Apps. You can see that Canvas has a kind of a tabs on top of it and says new inspections and general task, meeting and files. In the left components bar, you can actually see the collaboration in preview, those additional controls. And those are the new controls. They're not necessarily, and they're not available for you right now, but they will be coming relatively soon as well. But basic idea is that we make it easier to make your Power Apps pretty and connected. So they're almost like the Craft Toolkit controls, but really specialized for the Power Apps and taking advantage of those same learnings which we got from a Craft Toolkit as well. So all of this is highly connected throughout our internal messaging and internal planning. But key point here is, again, you can make it really easy to connect to your Microsoft 365 data, just with these controls, and they will make your application look pretty without any further configurations and options. So there's a lot of ready-to-use capabilities within those controls by default. So super cool, making it easier to build really engaging Power applications. Sorry, Power Apps is the right way of saying that, not Power Applications. Now, I'm gonna not focus too much on the Power Platform side, but we did announce, of course, you've probably seen this already, new Power Platform logo that got a lot of attention. And really the key new feature in the Power Platform side is the Power Pages. And this is a kind of evolution. It's based on the Power Portals. It's an evolution on top of it, and it makes it easier to build public-facing websites with modern, secure, and responsive websites which do scale. So it's all based on the Power Portal capabilities behind the scenes, but it's a modern kind of a layout and modern capabilities on top of that. Now, because we wanted to focus on this call more on the platform side of the things, I'm not going to deep dive on the new announcements on the Power Platform. We're going to call out a few specific things related on Microsoft Teams and Graph and Viva on what's happening. So a lot of me talking, but I guess that's my life. We Finns, we are so silent and settle. Now, let's talk about a bit on the Microsoft Teams app model updates. So there are certain updates. We kind of mentioned the key updates there. So with Microsoft Teams, there's a lot of things which you can do, and we keep on evolving those capabilities. So you will get additional features and capabilities. But this time we did not announce new object or component type, so to say, because we have really well set up of features and capabilities already in Teams. We keep on evolving them, but now we're looking into extending those things to be available across Outlook and Office.com. And maybe soon later on, well, obviously, it's logical that it's in the pipeline in other areas as well. And right now we are starting with personal applications and personal apps and search-driven messaging extensions, which are then being supported to be also exposed in Outlook or Outlook and Office.com. So you can access the same application from separate services, which is really, really cool. I'll come back on some of the questions in a second. Now, here's an example of the SurveyMonkey, and of course, the SurveyMonkey then be the same application can be then surfaced in Outlook or in the Office.com, but it's the same surface, same extension, same application, and you're as a developer, you can define on which hosts or which services it will be supported and how it will be supported, and then that basically enables that functionality to be available within that service, which is really, really, really cool. Now, other things which we mentioned last week related on the Teams integration. So the Loop components, we've been having these for a while, which is really, really cool. So they are the real-time collaborative platform, which you can use from a developer side as well. So the Fluid framework, which is powering Loop components, is now G8, and the Fluid Azure Relay is a G8 as well, starting from build last week, which is really, really cool. So we're starting to able to build your applications or integrate these kind of really runtime, immediate integrations and collaboration capabilities within your apps. And we also announced that you can actually take advantage of those load components in adaptive cards, which is a new feature. So as you post, for example, adaptive cards from your bots, you can actually have a loop component. And then the loop component can be modified or accessed through multiple different channels. And again, the same loop component can be accessed, for example, from Teams and in email and in other locations as well in the future. So you can update them simultaneously the same content throughout all of the people who are accessing the information, which is really, really cool. Now, as said, I'll try to come on all of the questions a bit later. I have a few slides to go through still. I want to call out a few things. So Microsoft Teams Framework, so Teams FX is going to partly going GA. Well, actually, Teams FX, to be explicit, went GA last week, but there are certain tooling which is still in preview. So Teams FX is a Teams development framework, really targeting on making it a Teams development easier. It provides NPM packages, NuGet packages. It provides us a CLI to make deployment of our solutions easier, towards Microsoft Teams. So we can do a scripting, automation, CDCI with that CLI. And then we have the IDE extension, so Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio 2022, which are what is IDE in English? Anyway, development environments. What is
Integrated development environment.
Integrated. Thank you, Brian. Okay, excellent. So, but we have the Visual Studio Code, and we have then the Visual Studio as the development environments. Thank you, Jim, for sharing that as well. Massive blackout. Now, the Teams Toolkit CLI. This is actually kind of a nice picture. You can see that there's a set of those commands. So you can create a new application. You can add features to the application. You can add capabilities. You can do all of that automation in the command line to make things happen. So that's really, really cool. And then on the Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, will give you an easy access directly on these panels to create your application, add features to the application, editing your Teams manifest file, provisioning to the cloud, and that, by the way, includes also provisioning to Azure pieces. So not just the Teams app catalog, but also the Microsoft Azure pieces, like let's say Microsoft Azure SQL or Azure Functions, and all of that could be part of the solution. And it's all getting bundled and deployed as a one step forward within the cloud, which is really, really cool. So we recommend have a look on this. And as mentioned already, the Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio is in works as well. It's going to use the CLI behind the scenes. There's certain NuGet packages which are not quite yet to be announced to be ready for GA. So there's still work to be done in here, but that's planned to go GA as in generally available later this summer. Something else what we announced related on Teams and development, something which is actually kind of cool. So now you have the application, you really worked hard on that application, and you want to make actually money with that application. We have 270 million users in Microsoft Teams, and you want to make money with those people. Well, we offer you a monetization platform. And as part of that monetization platform, we did announce general availability in-app purchasing, which is really, really cool. And then coming soon, integrated license management. But let's focus on the in-app purchase a bit. What does it actually mean? As I'm acquiring the solution or adding the solution might have a free tier, but then if I start using advanced scenarios, it could actually look like something like this one. So it actually says, oh, by the way, we have this professional option available for you, and click a button in here, and you are able to upgrade to the better license of this application. And as I click that upgrade today, it will then spawn or open this pop-up from where I can then choose whatever the options are. And of course, me as a developer, I control what are my offerings, how much they will cost, and all of that stuff. We just help you to surface that information for the end users in Microsoft Teams. And as an end user then does the selection and does the checkout and potential credit cards, exchange, all of that stuff as part of this, there's a way of then showing the different messages and acknowledging that within your application. And then you can, in your application, you are aware that the user has acquired whatever the licenses they have actually acquired from the offering, which is really, really cool. Now, a few more things. I wanted to jump on the Microsoft Graph updates. A lot of stuff in the Microsoft Graph as well. The one slide which I always love to show when somebody's asking, okay, Microsoft Graph, it's an API. Well, it's a bit more than that, actually. It's a lot more than that. Of course, it's all about data access and getting the information available, which we have in the Microsoft 365, which is a lot of data. And there's so many APIs, so many capabilities available. But I love this slide because this explains what the Microsoft Graph is all about, and then we can talk about what are the new changes. So first of all, we have the REST APIs. So the REST APIs are there for you to access the data and modify the data in Microsoft 365. But maybe you want to add a lot of data in Microsoft 365, or maybe you want to read a lot of data from Microsoft 365. You want to mass update something or mass analyze some data in Microsoft 365. Those APIs are not designed for that. Or maybe you want to surface your local LOB data in Microsoft 365. Those APIs are not designed for that. Those APIs are for data manipulation in a let's say not in a mass level. Whenever we talk about bulk access and information, then we have the connectors, which are there basically for data ingestion, enrichment, and indexing. So you could index your on-premises data for Microsoft Search. You could index in other areas. You can push that data to be available through the Microsoft Graph surface. And then if you're looking into really accessing a lot of data through a bulk data access, you will take advantage of Microsoft Graph Data Connect. And in all of these areas, there's, of course, a lot of new announcements available. All of that, of course, available from the Graph portal, which we mentioned already earlier in this session by Robert and Lewis, but a few of those things to call out in here. So in the Graph Data Connect, which is all about the fact that I'm mass bulk editing or bulk reading the data for Microsoft 365, there are new connectors which are available for preview, which is the group conversation. Viva Insights Analytics is now available in here, so you're able to actually access that in Viva Insights data. And of course, in the future, there will be other Viva elements as well. More features in the SharePoint, because SharePoint is the storage of all of our files and information there and sites. And then you can access the meeting transcripts as well. And then there will be a lot of additional things in the future as well. So but already a lot of this data, what we have in the Microsoft 365, can be mass or bulk accessed using the Microsoft Graph Data Connect. Also on the Graph API surface, there was a lot of updates. The main updates, just to call out from a Microsoft Teams perspective, is a new Teams Graph APIs related on creating a chat, sending a message, and list the chats and get messages and create subscriptions. And all of this is kind of enabling you that scenario where you can integrate or you can start a discussion in your application rather than forcing the user to go to the Teams. Maybe it's a website and you want to start a discussion from the website. Well, in that case, maybe people have access and take advantage of Azure Communication Services, which is certainly a great option as well. Now, on the Microsoft Search side of the graph, so to say, well, how does the Microsoft Search relate on this? Well, it's all about those connectors. How do we get the data to Microsoft Search and to the Microsoft Graph, which then makes it available to be exposed through the search. It is, and there's a lot of improvements here as well, so making it easier to access your line of business information or your business data across the different applications which you might be using. And as we've been seeing throughout the spring, we've been having preview discussions this already. We are releasing the SDK for creating graph connectors, so making it easier to develop those connectors to the endpoints, whatever is available, whatever the information is that what you need to be able to access. So again, that's giving you the insights for option to, for example, index or crawl data from your line of business application, for example, in on-premises, and then you can access all of that from a Microsoft Search from a single UX, which is really, really cool. And then there was a lot of other Microsoft Graph updates. All of the so as an example, updates on the portal, which we already mentioned today, SDK updates on the Kyoda, which is a code generator for next generation open API based SDKs. So that's available now. Microsoft Graph Toolkit updates. There was a new Microsoft Graph Learning Path available, and much more. And again, I would go to the graph.microsoft.com to have a look on those. And then as a final section, pretty much on schedule. This is pretty amazing. A few updates on the Viva Connection and SharePoint framework. We didn't really focus on build around those announcements for Viva Connection and SharePoint framework, but there is a new version coming out for that relatively soon. So there was an on-demand session in build, and it was mentioned in Jeff Teeper's keynote and the blog post as well. So the SharePoint framework, together with Viva Connection Toolkit, we'll have a latest version in 1.15, which is scheduled to go out in June. Today is the last day of May, so it is coming relatively soon. Now, I can probably spell the beans that we're looking into having the release candidate out later today or tomorrow related on SharePoint Framework 1.15, which is then targeting Microsoft Teams, Viva Connection, and of course SharePoint Online. The newest big things are the Microsoft Graph SDK v3 support, and then the new customizer for edit list and library forms, making it possible to override the list experience within a SharePoint Online or in Microsoft Lists. So really, really cool stuff. And then as part of the build announcements, we also talked about our future direction where we will have POT-powered Viva Connection cards. So this is kind of a good example how we're combining the technologies across the different products and services. So the Viva Connection cards PnP is still, of course, in the future implemented using SharePoint framework, but as there are a lot of ISVs who have existing bots and bot framework investments, they would love to have a capability and support of creating those Viva connection cards using bots, and that will be available later as part of the most likely 1.16 preview release, which is scheduled to go out 2 weeks after the GA of 1.15. So a lot of stuff. And as mentioned already by Brian, as we went through the news, there's a lot of news articles available. I will paste in all of these links right now on the chat, which is a lot of them, but you're able to follow up on them afterwards, depending on the areas which you are interested. Good. Brian, there was some discussion on the chat. Hopefully, were you able to follow up on that? Any specific questions which I should jump in before we close up? Maybe we'll have 1 minute.
I'm taking a look through. I answered 1 or 2 of them. There was a question, I think, a little bit earlier up about, we talked about the Teams apps being able to go into Outlook now. There's someone asking for an update on the SPFX version of that, which I know was in preview at one point.
Yeah, so the SPS preview, which we did related on Office, and that preview unfortunately didn't result that to get released now. But however, what we're doing, we learned from that as a Microsoft, as a one Microsoft, we learned the best practices. And now what we're doing is that as part of this Teams and Outlook and Teams V2 SDK effort, gradually we are getting that same support in the SharePoint framework. So what we're looking into doing gradually, again, not in 1.15, is that whenever you're packaging your SharePoint framework solution, you will actually get a Teams zip file. And inside of that Teams zip file, you will have the manifest, you will have the images, and then the SPPKG file. So we're all unifying to this one unified packaging model, which is then shared across Outlook, Office, Teams, and SharePoint. And then you are able to use SharePoint framework driven, so automatically hosted without Azure requirements, applications also in Outlook, using the SharePoint framework implementation, but that's a bit further down on the pipeline, so I cannot give you an exact timeline. So not in 1.15, but it's all getting planned and planned for the next steps. Good. I guess that's it from my side. Brian, do you want to talk to last slides, or should I just go forward in here because I'm on the presentation?
Yeah, just flip to the next one, and we can talk to those for wrapping up here. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today on our last community call of May in 2022. We'll see you again next in June 7th, which is going to be our next call. Again, you can find all the recordings for these community calls at aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. Please subscribe today. You can get all the latest announcements and videos as they get published. Again, that should be out there within 24 hours for today's call. You can follow along with us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev, as well as at M365PNP. Look forward to seeing you next week for our next call. Again, you can find all the different links for this at aka.ms/m365/calls. Find all the invites that are out there. Again, thanks so much for joining in today. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brian, Lewis, and Repub as well. And thank you for all of the attendees. We'll be in touch. Bye-bye.